Welcome.
To the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 261 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. So good to see you. We're going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff today. We're going to be exploring and checking it out. Maybe fixing some issues. Maybe who knows what we're going to be doing. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get started. So let me just share my screen. All right. Actually, let's go to the agenda because that's what we always start with. It's September 8th, 2021. And a reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I think I know what I want to do today. I think I know what I'm hoping to address today and the sort of the path, the arc I'm hoping to take. But it might not go according to plan. I might not even get past bullet number 1. We might get sidelined, sidetracked, distracted, stuck. Who knows what'll happen? None of this is really pre-planned. Like, there's a bug I'm hoping to work on. Maybe we'll fix it, and maybe we won't. I'm not sure what'll happen. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at with all these handy links, that's something that you have access to. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the video description down below. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, it is in the details section to the left, I think, of the video. And if you're watching this on Twitch, I'm about to drop a link in the Twitch chat. Here it is, agenda. It looks like someone has filed a bug. They ask if I would have time today to look at it. It has to do with Firefox accounts. When two-factor authentication is enabled, the authorize this sign-in page incorrectly informs the user. Open the application menu, click on Firefox account, click on manage account. After following the steps, sign-in authorization appeared. It says an email is sent, but no email is ever sent. I have very little visibility into what goes on here. So it sounds like it's been filed in the right place. It's in the cloud services Firefox accounts component, but I don't really have a whole lot of visibility into how the server side of things work for Firefox accounts. So I don't think I'll be able to look at this one today, but it looks like it's filed in the right place. It's in the right component. So, and this got filed only 6 hours ago. So I suspect that it will, it looks like the bot put it in the right place. Very good. Good job, release management bot. So hopefully sometime later this week, maybe even later today, this will be triaged and someone will take a look at it. So I hope that's okay, Humbug. I don't think I'll be looking at this one today, but someone will hopefully be looking at this bug soon. All right. What did I want to look at today? I think I just talked about the agenda. I'm going to skip over talking about the episode guide for now. We talked a lot about the episode guide last week because we fixed a bug with it. I don't know if you remember, and I believe it's stuck. Let's actually go and check out the episode guide just to see. Yep, the button is still looking right, so we did the right thing. And I even merged in a couple of episodes, if I remember correctly, last week. So that's good. And I think there are a few more episodes in the review queue, but I'm not gonna. There's one from Smurf D. Oh, there's 2 for the last 2 episodes. So I will address those later. I'll probably try and merge those later today. But instead, I want to focus on something else, which is something that if you are using Firefox nightly, you might not have realized this, but there's a new about page. So there are all these about pages, internal about pages. All of these about pages are locally hosted. They're not pointing to, websites out on the internet. They are internal sites or internal documents rather that do various things. They have elevated privileges and they can do various things. Like, for example, about processes tells you about all sorts of tells you lots of interesting information about, various processes that have been launched, how much memory they're using, how much CPU they're using, what kind of processes there are around, and what threads, what the threads are doing and how much power they're using, etc. So that's pretty handy. What else do we have? We have one called about networking, or about, hang on, let's see. How about what's a good one? What's a good one that's got about debugging? This is a really good one. So about debugging has a lot of power, where you can attach You can load temporary add-ons. You can inspect your add-ons. If you're like an add-on developer, you can attach a mobile version of Firefox and connect to it. There's a lot of power in these about pages, and there's a new one that just got added that I thought I'd bring to your attention called About Unloads. So About Unloads, or About Unloads rather, there's an explanatory set of paragraphs at the top here, but basically About Unloads is a page that gives you insight into what decisions Firefox is making whenever it unloads tabs in low memory events. So let me try and explain. Firefox these days uses lots of content processes to load websites. Like in release Firefox, by default, we use, I think, a maximum of 8 content processes, or maybe it's 4, but I think it's 8. With Fission, Project Fission, which if you're not familiar with it, is the out-of-process iframe project that will soon be going out to release. The number of content processes that can be created will go up over time. Like if I go to, a classic example is CNN.com. If you go to CNN.com, there are a bunch of processes that are used here. Like if you have Nightly and you hover the tab, you actually get some information about it. So it's probably really difficult to see in the tooltip here, but after the page title, it tells me the process ID of the top level document. So the actual CNN.com page, it's loaded in process 1739. And then there are a couple of other numbers with the letter F following it. And it's very cryptic, and we don't show this for non-nightly builds. But that F means that this is a Fission tab, and we have some out-of-process iframes running in processes 1751, 1750, and 1743. And the reason that those are running in different processes is because they're different. They have different origins. They're not at CNN.com. They might be something like an ad network, or Facebook, an embedded Facebook widget or something. And I don't know what those are. I wonder if it could tell us if we dug in deep enough, actually. Like about processes might give us some sense of it. CNN, and there's a CNN tab, and then they look like ads. Ad NXS. There's one called BT Loader. There's one called Index WW. I don't know what these things are, but these are the things that I believe are loaded, that like the process IDs map to CNN.com. So it ended up creating 3 new content processes, each one loaded at these different origins. So over time, we're going to end up seeing more and more. We're going to end up seeing more and more content processes created, and I'm actually surprised that that's not showing more information about process IDs here on the right. But I wanted to know more about how this page works, because I don't actually know what it's doing. I saw it land. There's this unload button. I should go into more detail about what this is trying to show us. It's not just trying to show us like pages that are loaded or anything. What this is trying to tell us is that over time, as we accumulate more and more content processes, and as more and more things load, like I'm going to load Mozilla.org and maybe YouTube.com and Facebook.com. As we load more and more things, more and more content processes will be created, and there's a higher likelihood that a user is going to start reaching their memory limits on their machine. And so, we've done a lot of work to try and reduce how much memory a content process takes, but there is like a non-zero overhead that is like, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Like a content process takes memory, and we need to have separate content processes to, as part of this isolation project called Fission, which is sort of like a very rigorous defense in depth for, speculative attacks like Spectre and Meltdown, which if you're not familiar, you should read more about Spectre. It's like Project Fission is like a defense in depth for basically types of attacks that involve sites taking advantage of the way that CPUs work in order to read the memory of other things within the same process. And so if you're not sure what I mean by that, you can look up Spectre and Meltdown. And like, rest assured, we've done a lot before Fission has shipped in order to make that really, really hard or impossible with like timer resolution. Like, it really depends on high resolution timers, this kind of attack. And we've done a lot of work to make those timers not have such high resolution, to add a lot of noise. But that's like a stopgap measure, and Project Fission, aka site isolation, is like the proper solution. So we can take those countermeasures out once Project Fission lands. So that's why we've been working on it. And so over time, you're going to accumulate more and more of these content processes, and your users are just inevitably going, after a long enough browsing session, if they keep tabs open, they're going to run out of memory, or they're going to hit low memory events, what we call memory pressure, where say they've got 4 gigabytes of memory, and you know their operating system's using some, maybe some other programs are using some, and all of these Firefox processes are using some. And eventually the machine, if you run out of memory on your machine, it's a bit like running out of space on your work desk, where stuff's just like, you can't work anymore. When a machine tends to run out of memory, what often happens is the operating system will do, well, first of all, it will attempt to use the disk as like a virtual memory, which can make things really slow because disk access is very slow. But the other thing that could happen is that programs can crash due to memory fragmentation. So, for example, if Firefox attempts to allocate a big enough block of memory, or a content process tries to allocate a big enough block of memory, and there's been enough fragmentation in a particular process, in that process, such that it can't get a contiguous amount of memory to allocate, it will crash. That's called an or out of memory, or small, where we just couldn't find a contiguous region of memory that satisfied the requirements of the allocation. That's called an small. And then large is whenever something tries to allocate memory and there's just not enough. You know, we ask the system, like, give us some memory, and the operating system's like, nope, can't do it, and then the process crashes. And that can happen if we're out of memory. We're just out of memory. So there's a lot of reasons why we would want to save memory if it's not obvious. Like, browsers use memory. Web pages are complex. Browsers use memory. They're not just documents anymore. They're applications. They use memory. But the more we can do to help reduce the amount of memory that we use, the better, while also not harming user experience on the web. So that's all sort of context for this tab unloading thing. Now, we actually tried to do this a couple years ago, but it was it didn't work out. Let me just describe the idea. It's a very simple concept, but basically, we have a mechanism that detects whenever you are running out of memory, whenever you are low on memory, and that's called a memory pressure event. And when we see something like that on your machine, we will try and find a tab that you haven't used in a while, and then we unload it. And by unload it, I mean put it in a state like as if it had been closed, or you just restarted your session, and when you click on it, it then reloads. You know, like, it doesn't go away. It stays in your tab strip, but then when you choose it, when you select it, that's when we actually like load the content and like create a content process for it. So that's the idea. That's the idea. And we're not the only ones who have come up with this idea. I believe Chromium has a similar mechanism. If we open up Chrome, they have a page called Discards. Chrome Discards, I think is what it's called, and it has like a similar table where they do various logic, I guess, to figure out which tab they can unload, and that's the same idea. Okay, so the reason I bring all of this up, and you can actually trigger this unloading itself without having to what am I saying? Without having to hit a memory pressure event, you can trigger this unloading yourself. If I hit this button, I can start like unloading pages. And then if I go to one of these tabs, like CBC was unloaded, so now when I click on it, it will cause a reload. That's the intent. And during that time when I was unloading those tabs, we were reclaiming memory. We were killing content processes, and we were reclaiming memory. So our hope is that we unload things that are low value, that don't involve, you know, audio that's playing in the background, or your web RTC video conferencing call that's running in the background. We definitely do not want to unload those things. We don't want to unload things if you've been typing in it. So if you have like saved state, Those are the sorts of decisions that we're making on what we should unload. And the other thing is that we look at the recency of the tab. Like, I believe part of the ranking has to do with, did you look at this tab recently? If it's something you haven't looked at for a long enough session, if you haven't looked at it in days or even hours, and it's not a document that you've got any state in, and it's not a document playing any audio, then chances are it's pretty safe to unload. That's the idea behind it. And tab unloading is a thing that we haven't shipped yet. It's not enabled by default, but we're experimenting with it. And so far the results have been pretty good. Last I heard, we are seeing a drop in the number of out of memory events, and that's or like out of memory crashes. There's a statistically significant difference in the number of out-of-memory crashes that we're seeing in the test population that have tab unloading enabled, which is great. Like, that's exactly what we want with this. Is we want to save you from having a crashed browser and save you from having a crashed content processor, a crashed browser, or any of those things. Okay, so lots of context. What do we want to do? So I want to actually know how this page works, because I don't actually know. I just saw it go by and I want to know how this page works. So I'm going to step through my process. Like, I haven't done any homework on this. I don't know how this page works. And I'm going to try and figure it out for the first section of this episode of The Joy of Coding. And we're probably just going to end up using Searchfox a lot. And actually, while I'm doing that in the background, I think I haven't finished a build of Mozilla Central yet. And that was a problem last time. So I'm going to make sure that that's done. I'm going to make sure that I've got a build completed. So I'm going to run that, and we'll run it in the background. So here we go. Let's figure out how this page works. Now, whenever I am trying to figure out how something works in Firefox, the first thing to try and figure out is, like, where is the code? Where is this stuff? And so one of the easiest ways of figuring that out is by, like, looking at some strings. Like, this is the way I do it anyways. I find a string, and then I search for it using Searchfox. So I'm going to go Searchfox, and I'm going to search for tab unloading. And I can see that there is this, like, about unloads.ftl file, a Fluent file that has this thing called tab, like a string called tab unloading, that it has this key, about unloads page title. Okay, so that's one level of indirection, but now I have this key that I can then search for. So what's using that key? And now we've found an HTML document. Okay, so this is the document, about unloads.html. That makes sense. I also see that there is a tab unloader component. That is very handy. That's good to know. Let's take a look at what this thing does. So there's a script called about unloads.js, which is probably in the same directory. So we're going to look at that in a second. And it looks like what this markup basically does is it sets up this table, and then it's done. So I'll bet you most of the actual work is happening inside of about unloads.js. And I can see within this folder, there's like some styling, and there's the script, and then the document, and that's basically it. And then there's like some packaging boilerplate here to make sure that the component shows up and is available. So I think the vast majority of what we're going to be looking at for this exploration is about unloads.js. Okay, so what does this thing do? It looks like, well, first of all, it looks like we have a component called tab unloader.jsm, which is familiar. I think I've actually seen that before, and I've actually reviewed some patches for it years and years ago. Whenever we first did this tab unloader work. But the reason, I should mention, the reason why this didn't ship years and years ago is that it actually did. We actually turned this on years and years ago, but then it upset some people because we did a bad job of selecting which tabs to unload. We ended up unloading tabs too aggressively, and people did not like that. So we shut it off immediately. Like, we sent out a signal to the feature saying, okay, disable. And so that ended up not being a problem. And then we had to kind of go back to the drawing board. And that was even before the Fission project really took off. That had to do more with just like memory reclamation with electrolysis. But then when Fission came along, we realized we needed to come back to this. And then, a lot of really smart people pooled their brains together and came up with better heuristics for trying to figure out, how do we make sure that we unload the right things? And that's why we're being very cautious about rolling it out too. Like, we don't want to do the same thing we did last time where we just turn it on for everybody and then hear about how it's not working. Instead, we're going to like do an experiment and make sure that like people aren't upset by what's being unloaded. Okay, so there's the tab unloader module, which is probably doing a lot of the work. And it looks like there is a get sorted tabs method on it that returns a promise that's giving us data that we're then populating a table with. Let's actually, before we look deep at this refresh data function, let's go further down and see what else is in this file. It's not a very long file. Like, if you look at the scroll bar, most of this file is actually this refresh data function, which is fine. It looks like what happens is as soon as the document loads, we wait for the DOM content loaded event, which we only wait for once, and there's an onload event handler. And the first thing it does is it gets at the, I guess there's that button, the unload button over here, has this ID, I'll bet, called button unload, and we add a click event listener to it. And that click event listener does the actual work of unloading the least recently used tab and then refreshing the table. And then we refresh the data. Okay, so we refresh the data. And does this thing work on a timer? I'm actually curious. How set timeout, interval. Okay, so this thing doesn't actually update itself over time. Like, whenever you load it, like, unlike the process manager, which if you wait a couple of seconds, you'll notice that like it's updating itself every couple of seconds, and like these values are changing. That's not the case for tab unloading. I guess I have to reload in order for it to update itself. And that's good and bad, you know, like there are pluses and minuses to this kind of design where the live reloading is great, but then it means things are moving around. Like if I'm looking at the process manager, this is good, except, you know, if I start to like examine some of the stuff and I've got something selected, maybe I'm looking at maybe I'm looking up here and suddenly the table just changes order. I think that can actually happen. Maybe they've fixed it, because I'm not noticing the table reordering, just some of the numbers changing. But that can be a little disorienting and a little frustrating as the values change if you're trying to get a sense of something. But at the same time, it's nice to have up-to-the-minute information about stuff. I also notice there's this gear here. What does this do? Oh, it does nothing. It does nothing. But I'll bet you some of the time it can do something. I'll bet there's like a mode where it does. Yeah, it looks like I can close tabs or unload tabs and kill the process. I can close tabs within here. All right, that's pretty neat. Okay, so this does not excuse me, live reload. So that's interesting. It looks like the secondary weight and the memory cells are not populating, which is interesting because I thought I saw this populating the other day. And so maybe this broke recently, which wouldn't surprise me. I mean, this stuff is very, very new and very raw. If you try and go to this about unloads page and release Firefox, you won't find it. This is very new. In fact, if we take a look at the age of this file, if we look at the log of it here, we can see that it only landed yesterday. So this is very, very new. It's very, very new. So it's not surprising that some parts of it would be broken. It's still stabilizing. So no judgment there. So what does this refresh data function do? It looks like we get our sorted tabs, and then we get at the table body. We create a function called getHost, which knows how to try and get at a host. And if there's no host, we get the full URL, which makes sense because there are some pages that like don't technically have a host. Like About Unloads does not have a host. This is what's called a URI, not a URL. Whereas this is part of a URL, and we just get the host from it. Yeah, if you're ever curious about why we sometimes use URIs and URLs interchangeably, they're not interchangeable. A URI, let me just put a fact here. A URL is a subset of URLs are a subset of URIs. So here's an example of a URI. About home. About. View source. And then like a website. Google.ca. And then here are URLs. MikeConley.ca. HTTPS example.com. And HTTP badssl.com. Like these are examples of URLs, and these are examples of URIs, except that this is also an example of a URI. So a URI is like a less strict definition of what a URL is. A URL has like very specific parts. Like it has the scheme, does the : / there's a host, that sort of thing. So Charged Neon says in Chrome, a URI might be Chrome : / version. Yes, although I believe that's technically also a URL. This version, I believe this is a URL. It's got a Chrome scheme, and this is like the host, but it's got the : / I think this is a URL. Whereas something like about discards or about unloads rather is a URI. And Chrome : / version is also a URI, but Chrome : / version about unloads is not a URL. That's the difference. These about pages are not URLs. They are URIs. That's the difference. I think I saw a Venn diagram recently. URI versus URL. Yeah, this is the idea. A URI is like the superset. Whereas a URL like has a much more specific form. I think that's how it works. Anyways, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, send a message to the episode guide to correct me. But I'm pretty sure that's the idea. So I'm gonna say maybe fact, because you'll find that we'll use the term interchangeably, because sometimes in the code at least, most things will be URLs, but some of the times they're URIs, and so we'll have stuff like this. All right, anyways, let's move on. We also have this function called update timestamp, which will do the work of, I guess, updating this chunk right here, this text. And then it looks like what we do is we delete all the elements in the row. And if there are no items in sorted tabs, then I don't know when that would be. There would always at least be the one tab that we're looking at, about unloads, but I guess they're handling the case where there might not be any sorted tabs. Okay. And then we check to see if any of them are... if the next one is not discardable, because I guess the 0th element of sorted tabs is the one with the highest priority for discarding. So if that one is not discardable, then we're sunk. So we disable the button if we can't discard it. And then we create the rows for each. So yeah, this is a classic document fragment creation thing where we we get a template, we get a fragment, let's look at that template actually. So there's a template in here. Yeah, this is a template for the table row, which is just a table row with a bunch of TDs. I guess it saves having to generate each one of those TDs individually. And then what it does is we clone the template, we get the row, and then we just start poking values in. We just start poking values in with the text content property of each cell. And if there's a memory in the tab info, because I guess the tab info is what we get out of the sorted tabs list, then we populate that in the table. So I'm actually really curious, what does this sorted tabs thing look like? Tab unloader. Do I have access to that? I don't. So let me see if I can get access to it real quick. Let me import it in the scope, and then let's take a look at our get sorted tabs. Get sorted tabs. Let's await it. And so we have our tabs here, and so we have this thing, and it looks like, yeah, we don't have memory. We just have the G browser that it belongs to, the tab itself, and then a wait value, but we don't have anything like memory. And I wonder why that is. We can actually take a look at tabunloader.jsm and see if maybe something got disabled recently. Or maybe it relies on something. Memory equals request process info, calculate memory usage, and then we say process info.memory is that, and then adjust for resource use. Tab.memory equals total memory, and then there's this like unique count thing. And who calls this? Does this ever get called? Adjust for resource use. You'd think it would. Oh, if the lowest count is 1, no benefit from calculating the tab's memory and additional weight. Maybe we're hitting this sort of like special case. But we can actually figure this out if we open up our debugger. Have I updated my nightly? Yes, this is the last nightly. It was the most recent one. So I think I'm okay. Let's go inside tab unloader. And then get sorted tabs. It's nicely documented. Good job, whoever worked on this stuff. Good job. And let's see if we end up doing this. So get sorted tabs. Tab unloader, get sorted tabs. Unloader tabs is what I'll call it. Unloader tabs equal that. Unloader. And we notice we did not hit our breakpoint. So let's do that again. And let's take a look at the lowest weighted count. -4. How did that happen? Lowest weighted is the number of tabs minus the higher weighted count. What's the higher weighted count? I guess is 10. And what is this higher weighted count thing? Higher weighted count. Let's read through this. Higher weighted count. Determine the lowest weight that the tabs have. The tabs with the lowest weight will be additionally weighted by the number of processes and memory that they use. So the higher weighted count starts at 0, and then for each tab we look at the weight, and if it's not the lowest weight, lowest weight is, I see. So we like try and find the weight, the lowest weight. We have the lowest weight stored. And for any tab that doesn't have the lowest weight, I guess we just sort of like forget about, like we get the index, we take the tab's length, we subtract the index at that point, and then we break. So if these are sorted, the tabs are sorted by their weight, then everything with higher weight is gone. So anything that doesn't have the lowest weight is gone. And then the higher weighted count, I guess, is the next value. Is the index. is the no tabs length minus the index. It's the number of tabs. Oh, I see. It's the number of tabs that don't have the lowest weight. Okay. And so if the number of tabs minus the one, if there's only, I see what's happening here. So we calculate how many tabs have a value of the lowest weight. And if that number is greater than 1, then we go even further and we try and calculate the memory for them to like adjust the list for resource use. Like we want to have this like low weight bucket and then like do further refinements and sort that lowest weight value or that lowest weight bucket and adjust those weights based on things like memory use and stuff. And I guess that's what's going on. That's why memory isn't showing up here. Is apparently there are, right, sorry, I'm stuck here in the breakpoint. So the reason that I guess this is not showing up with secondary weight and memory is because the base weight, it's all the same. Wait, no, hold on a second. The base weight is 0. What are the weights of these things? Let me do this one more time. Unloader tabs. Now let's take a look at 0, and let's take a look at its weight. It's got a weight of 0. And what does that mean, a weight of 0? Determine tab base weight. Total weight is 0, and then we... Oh, you know what? I'll bet you the weight will change if we like load a video or something. Let me load a video. Is there a video in here? Or, yeah, here we go. Let's load a video. I'm going to mute it. I don't want to hear any of that. But, like, we've got this video playing. And now if I reload... No, that didn't change its weight at all. Interesting. And unloader tabs. Tab.current... tab.linked browser current URI spec. So it still thinks that CBC and what's the other one? CNN. Oh, no, it's resorted it. 0, 1. Oh, no, sorry, I'm off by 1 error. That should have been 4. It thinks that this has the same weight. Interesting. It thinks it has a weight of 0. What happens if you put this into picture-in-picture? Does this still have the same weight there, tab unloader? Ah, now the weight has changed. Because I'm picturing it. You know what? I'll bet you if there was sound, that's why it doesn't have the right weight. It's because there's...
Position.
Here, I'm going to turn this down. It still has sound. There we go. Then the weight changes. That's the difference. Okay. I'm starting to understand what's happening here. And now the weight goes back down. These are all equivalent to it, but so what it ends up using is the frequency time or the most recent access time to determine which one to unload. Okay, I think I'm starting to understand what's going on here. I think I understand. I don't know if I want to go any further. I think I get it for the most part. This is very fascinating stuff. If you yourself want to tinker with tab unloader, or maybe you want to, explore the code, I'll just put some links to the folder here in the agenda. So let me add some permalinks. So this is about unloads.js. And this is about unloads.html. Right here. And if you find any bugs with it, or maybe you want to report some bugs, I wonder where they should go. Or maybe you want to look for bugs to work on. Looks like this is part of the tabbed browser component. And there doesn't seem to be any dependencies here. So, but Toshi is the one who worked on this stuff. It's great stuff. And so if there are bugs with this that you want to fix or you want to report, maybe put it in Firefox tabbed browser for now. Part of Firefox tabbed browser in Bugzilla. All right, let's stop there. Oh, there is a whole bunch of traffic. Let me just see what's going on in the chat. Learn something PogChamp. I'm guessing PogChamp is one of those Twitchisms that I don't understand. Have you updated your... Yeah, that I read that message from Smurf D. Humbug writes, in About Preferences search shortcuts, is there a way of adding a desired website manually? For example, when I used allegro.pl, browser automatically suggested adding this domain into my search shortcuts. Unfortunately, I no longer see a way to add this since Firefox no longer offers me that option. And then it looks like Danny Colin offers a solution. I think there's another way of doing it. Isn't there like, I don't know what allegro.pl is, so hopefully you're not sending me to a bad place, but let's see. Allegro.pl. Some kind of shopping website, I guess. I guess I will accept. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you add this as a search provider. You can right click maybe? Or... Yeah, and About Preferences is another way of doing it, certainly. It looks like go to the website, click on the URL bar in the search with section. Yeah, I don't see the icon for the site in here. It's possible that this site is no longer using the OpenSearch stuff. Because like I think if you go to like, let me choose a different search engine like Ecosia. Does this work if I... Yeah, there's like a button here to add this as a search engine. And the reason that this exists here is because the site is advertising it's advertising itself as a search engine using the OpenSearch app, OpenSearch standard, I guess. And so it has some stuff in its markup to do that. And so this Allegro site, I guess, is not doing that. Or if it did, it's not doing it anymore. And if it did, you'd see an option for it in here. So there you go. I think we all learned something there. Charge in. Oh, it's just a Twitchism. Usually PogChamp is enthusiasm, kind of like saying yay. Okay, great. I'm glad. Smurfy says all of a sudden they can see process IDs in memory as well in the tab unloader. Right. So I bet you as we start surfing more and more, as I accumulate like stuff in my tabs and like I use them more and I start typing things, eventually we're going to start seeing stuff accumulate in here and scores start to go up. And that's going to cause like further information to be included in here because it's going to be making more refined decisions about things to unload. So yeah, let's unload about processes. Sounds good. Oh, I guess it can't unload about processes, so it's been unloading these. All right. So Humbug says that they know for sure that this website used to do this. So let's take a look at the markup. All right, you're sure? Let's take a look. Open search. I see nothing in the script. I see nothing in the header here about the OpenSearch API. OpenSearch standard. Let's see. Moz keyword, auto discovery, rel search. So let's look for all links on this page. Because maybe it was added dynamically. Document, query selector, all link. All right. We have a list of 28 nodes. Canonical, manifest, prefetch. I don't see any search. Sorry, Humbuck. I don't see search in here. Maybe that's because I'm not. Maybe I'm. No, I can't think of a reason why they don't have it in there. But that's how you add it to be discoverable search. You use this standard. You use this markup in your stuff. So I don't know what to tell you. If you right click in the search, then you can add a search, says Smurf D. Now I tried right clicking and I think it was like capturing my right click event. Like if I right click, it doesn't do anything. But if I hit shift and right click, I can bypass. Can I bypass? How is it? Oh, this website's just frozen. This website is not responding to me. We're painting it, but it's not responding to me. Why not? Oh, because I've hit a breakpoint. I've hit a breakpoint for some reason. For reasons that are unclear, I hit a breakpoint. Let me restart because I was... Okay, there we go. That makes more sense. I had a breakpoint hit and then everything crashed. So this site is now responding. If I right click, yeah, I can add a keyword for the search if I want. But I do not see it in here because the source does not publish the OpenSearch stuff. So tell them to do that. I don't know what to tell you, Humbug. All right, let's move on. Now, there's this other thing I was hoping to do today. We could try and enable this Talos test again. But before I do that, I wanted to take an opportunity to maybe answer some questions. So it's letter time, everybody. It's letter time. People seem to have been digging the questions. They seem to dig me answering questions. They seem to enjoy it. So I got a lot of feedback about that. I'm going to keep doing it because you seem to enjoy it. So here was the first question that came in. As a normal user, what other products of Mozilla do you use on a daily basis? What are the features of Firefox you can't live without? Okay, so I am a user of the Mozilla VPN. And I also use Pocket. I have Thunderbird on my on one of my desktop machines. It does a lot of mail filtering for me. What else do I use from Mozilla? I mean, I use Phoenix, so Firefox for Android. I have used Relay in the past. But don't often. But like, I don't often create aliases. I have Lockwise installed, but I don't know how much I use that. I mean, I guess I tend to use Phoenix's like login autocomplete stuff on my Android device, and so I don't tend to use Lockwise that much anymore. What else? I think those are the big things besides Firefox. I mean, obviously Firefox Nightly is my primary browser. That is my primary driver. So I guess I should put that at the top. And what are the features of Firefox that I can't live without? So I am a big fan of picture-in-picture, and not just because I worked on it and helped implement it, but also just as a user, I really enjoy it. I like the ability to just pop a thing out, resize it, move it to a different display, and then do other things. The dev tools, I mean, for my day job, I guess I should talk about what I can't live without as a user. So not doing like browser development. This is not a browser feature so much as like just a thing that's available in Firefox. But uBlock is an add-on that is invaluable. And let's see. What else do I really enjoy? I mean, the Awesome Bar is really intelligent. It's very good at finding the things that I want. That's this thing up here. I type in it. and usually what I want's in the first couple of hits. I am a tab, like a very tab centric person. So I have lots of tabs, and like the password generation, I've definitely used that before. What other things are invaluable to me? Like just knowing that it's got my interests at heart, and that it's using the best like encryption under the hood. It's trying to disable or dissuade trackers from following me around. Like knowing that is like an invaluable sort of meta feature of the browser. And I know this because I've both worked on it and I trust the people who work on this stuff. Like, I know that it's not like mining cryptocurrency under the hood. I know that it's not, you know, I'm not being sold out. Yeah. So I guess these are my answers for that question. Can you describe your day of work? Do you have a special time to read emails, Bugzilla, catch up with Slack, Matrix? What changes when you work on a bigger project versus a normal day? Every day is different because at least at this point in my career, I get roped into lots of different meetings. These meetings will be like a 45-minute or a half hour, sometimes hour-long meetings, and they're sprinkled throughout the week. Sometimes they're consultation meetings, sometimes they're planning meetings, sometimes they're strategy meetings, sometimes they're information dispersal meetings, decision-making meetings, et cetera, et cetera. And so like those are spread throughout my week, and then in between those, I'm either preparing for a meeting or I'm working on patches for things. Or I'm like working with other people and helping them get sorted out. So, you know, people might come to me with a question on something because they're working on, you know, something really important and they need to get unblocked, and so I'll work with them. And so I'm very event driven. I have like a list of things that I want to get done, obviously, and I try and have concentrated blocks to work. Try to have concentrated blocks of working time where I'm not in meetings. So I set aside items in my calendar that's just like, this is a block of working time for either doing preparation or for, you know, working on patches or something. And yeah, the first thing I do in the morning, is I go through my email, is go through what happened last night. What happened since the last time I was around. So that might be, you know, on a Monday, stuff may have happened on a weekend. Stuff may have happened because of Australia or Tokyo or Auckland or Taipei. You know, people over there were awake before I was, and so maybe they've done some stuff that I need to know about. You know, things maybe have landed that I need to know about. So I'll go through my messages, I'll go through my email, and just try and get caught up on what things are going on. And then, you know, look at my calendar for the day, and I look at my task list, and then try to plan a route. Try and plan a route. Like, I'm going to work on these tasks, and then I'm going to get ready for this meeting, and then I'm going to go to this meeting, and then I'll work on these tasks, etc. And that's generally how my day goes. But it's different from day to day because of those different, almost like stones in a river, where like there are these immovable objects, and I plan my way around them. I am the water in the river, planning myself around these stones. So that's a day of my work. And I start around 9, I end around 5:30, and call it a day. Can you walk us through previous jobs? Let's see. In my life, I've worked as a dishwasher. I worked as a music store clerk and guitar lesson teacher. I worked as a quality assurance clerk at a salvage firm. And then I was, what else did I do? I worked at a greenhouse. I did manual labor at a greenhouse. So that was like, you know, lifting, moving, planting, watering, pruning, etc. Dan Cullen says, a rock star in a band. Never got paid for it, so I don't know if I'd call that a job. That's more of a passion. I then worked as a web developer for a government institution. So I worked for a school board as an internal web application developer. For a school board. And then I was a TA. And, you know, during grad school, I was a TA. I was paid for that. And then I started working for Mozilla as a contractor. I think this is basically my journey. I may have missed some jobs in here. I mean, I'd do odd jobs for people. For a while there, I was known as someone who could dig you a really good hole. I liked landscaping. Oh yeah, I was a gardener. I was paid to be a gardener for a while. So hopefully that, and then Mozilla full time. This is not in chronological order. Like this is kind of these last three are in chronological. These last four are in chronological order, but these others are not. I don't know what order they were done in. Have you ever made or co-developed add-ons? Yes, I have. I actually, there's one right here. There are a couple right here. There's one called MyQ Only. There's one called Spin Doctor right here. There's one called Ono Reflow. These are add-ons. Ono Reflow and Spin Doctor I use to diagnose problems in the browser. This one's for what we call synchronous layout flushes, and this one's for tab switch spinners. Thankfully, I haven't seen too many of those lately. Those have become less and less frequent due to web render being enabled by default and other performance improvements. And then MyQ Only allows me to see things like, you know, how many reviews are in my queue to work on. And you can see my full add-ons list. If I go to addons.mozilla.org, I think I'm still logged in. What are my add-ons? Developer Hub. Oh yeah, I have a theme here. I could talk about Balcony. Balcony is this like, is this, what happened to this thing? It's incomplete. It's an experimental, oh, I guess it's not posted. View product page. It got marked as incomplete by adding a version or missing metadata. So Balcony is this thing I've been tinkering with. I haven't touched it in a long time, but Balcony is this tool that I started to hack on to try and make it easier for people to record alternative commentary for videos on the web. So you know if there's a YouTube video that you like, if you're at YouTube and maybe you wanna do commentary for my Joy of Coding video, instead of like uploading yet another video, you can install a browser extension and it can know to go get some audio from somewhere else and then play it at the same time and then do auto ducking. And I can actually show you an example because I think I have Balcony installed. Yeah, I have Balcony installed. So my example is this Big Buck Bunny video here. I'm pretty sure you can hear this. Let me just check audio output here. Can you hear Big Buck Bunny? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to play this video for a couple seconds, and then you should hear some audio commentary. Now, the audio commentary is not coming from this video. It's coming from Balcony, because Balcony knows that I added commentary to this, and it went and got it from a different server. So I'm going to hit play. Hello, this is Mike Conley. I am doing some audio commentary for Big Buck Bunny that I'm watching right now. I've actually never watched this entire short film before, but I'm doing this as a test for an experimental web extension I'm writing to try and make it easier for people to provide alternative commentary for films on the internet. So presumably this is... And notice that when I pause, it pauses the alternative commentary. Like, it's almost as if it's part of the video, but it's not. It's not. Like, I haven't touched the video. This is not something I control. Big Buck Bunny, or the Big Bunny, anyways. One of the things I'm hoping to do with this web extension is automatic auto ducking. If you've never heard of auto ducking before, it's whenever you have two signals of audio. So in this case, it'll be the audio from the film and then the audio from the commentary that you're hearing with my voice, and using one to influence the volume of the other. So in this case, while you hear my voice, the volume of Big Buck Bunny is lowered. And then if I were to pause, like now, hopefully you heard the volume go back up. And then, so that's, yeah, I just wanted to get to that point where it talked about auto ducking, because I think that's probably the most novel part of it, is that I'm using like the web audio API to detect whenever the commentary track has activity, and then I'm lowering the volume of the video track. Whoops. So if you're curious and want to see how it works, the source is here. I don't think I've touched it in a while because it was mainly just a sort of side project. And so the code is not very pretty, and it's hard coded to that one video for now. Excuse me. And how does it work? I think I was trying to figure out the best way of like making it so that there's not a centralized server that has your full list of commentary. Like, I wanted to make it so that you could go to someone's website and they could advertise that they have commentary for various videos on the web via something kind of like the Open Search API, where like they just add a link element to their document, and then you'd see a button in the URL bar that's like, yeah, I want to subscribe to this person's audio commentary. And then I'd want like a panel that shows links to the various videos that they've done commentary on, and then it goes and gets the audio. But I think the most important part of Balcony is, I think, the content here. And yeah, right now I'm pretty sure I am hard coding in, did I hard code in, how did I hard code in the video? Constants. Where did I hard code in the Big Buck Bunny? Bunny. Come on, how did I do this? I must have done this somewhere. Bunny? You know what? I should be able to just like search this repository. What? How does it know? How does it know? Did I somehow... Commentary URL? Where did the commentary URL come from? On page action clicked. You know, it's possible that this is like a half-done snapshot. Oh! It's because I'm hosting the JSON. Oh, that's why. It's here. And it looks like I did another one for YouTube. Let's see if this works. I'd forgotten that I did this on YouTube. So does this work if I go to YouTube? No, I don't hear it. Maybe it's broken. Whoop. I guess maybe I never got that part working for making it work on YouTube. Or maybe the selector is broken now. I don't know. But anyway, if you're curious, the add-on is here, and you can check it out. I see some commentary. They ask if it's a reference to, Statler and Waldorf from The Balcony. Yes, it is. It is a reference to Statler and Waldorf. From the Muppets. And would it also be possible to sync another video instead of audio only for sign language? Yeah, I don't see why not. Like, the actual synchronization was not the hard part. Synchronization works by, let's see here. We attach the audio, we wait for various events, and then, yeah, I resync the audio and video. So how do I do that? I do some kind of like, I just do some like very basic synchronization, and it seemed to work. So, should be possible. Should be possible. So hopefully that answers that question. I don't have a build of Balcony that is, it's like still experimental. It's not ready for public consumption, but maybe if I get some holiday time or some free time, I'll work on it more. But send me a pull request if you want to hack on it. Maybe you can make it work for YouTube. Okay, what is the thing I want to work on before we end today? There is a Talos test. Talos is our testing framework for internal benchmarking. And there's one that I think we've disabled, and I want to try and get it re-enabled. So talos.json is the name of the manifest, and I think there's one called startup. Yeah, about home paint, and then this one was disabled. About home paint cached was disabled. We're going to put it back in here. And I'm going to open up tests.talos test.py. Here it is. Let's just try and run it and see what happens. Mock Talos test A. Let's see what happens. Okay, I see the problem. See, notice how it just sort of like sat there and didn't do anything for a while until I reloaded the page. So that is the problem. That is the problem, and I can try and explain what's going on here. So this test is using a component that we were working on for a while called the About Home Startup Cache, which is a tool that tries to make a component that tries to make a browser startup faster or seem faster by caching the contents of this page periodically and it's not having to recompute it at startup. So startup is a very busy time, and so if we can avoid having to recompute that thing at startup, that's better. And if you're curious about the details of how that works, I actually blogged about it. I haven't written in my blog for a long time, so it's actually like the last thing I wrote, and it was over a year ago that I wrote about it. But if you're curious about it, you can read up on how it works and the design document and everything. And here's like a video comparison. You can actually see the improvement in time. So on the left is before and on the right is after. So with the component enabled, we get to painting and presenting much more quickly. This is on like a lower end sort of reference desktop or reference laptop, I believe. So it seems slower, I would imagine, than maybe some of you are used to if you're using high-powered machines. But for low-powered machines, it's very obvious that we load faster. And so this component, the About Home Startup Cache, is something I'm interested in writing tests for and making sure that we don't regress it. And so that's what this test was for. And the test was disabled because it fails so frequently. And the reason it fails is actually because of it actually, well, let me read you the comment from the bug because it kind of spells it out. So after some analysis, this test is failing because during the get info HTML page load step that runs during the profile setup part of Talos, so one of the first things Talos does whenever it is about to run a test is it first runs the browser in a special mode that gets a bunch of information about the environment and then quits. And during that step, when the browser shuts down, the about home cache state actually gets written to disk. And because the get info step happens so quickly, sometimes at this point, the cache write doesn't include any data for top sites. Because get info happens too quickly. So I had a couple of ideas on how we could fix this. One of them is to make get info wait longer. So having Talos powers content wait before it quits. So that's one idea. Go quit application. I think that's only called within Talos content powers. Or Talos powers content. And the TS paint test as well. So this Talos powers content thing sends this message, Talos powers go quit application, and that thing gets interpreted by this thing, which sends this force quit message, which is handled here in force quit. And so this maybe we can use to like yeah, there's like a wait for safe browsing thing. Maybe we can like wait for the about home startup cache. Wait for safe browsing. Who added this? Wait for safe browsing to an initial run of Talos perf testing. Who calls that? In go quit application, who says true? Here in get info. So maybe as a way of sort of prototyping the solution, this idea, we'll go to Talos powers API, force quit. So instead of just waiting for safe browsing, let's also wait for various other things like how do we wait for the about home startup cache? Now that's something inside of browser glue. Whoop, browser glue.jsm. About home startup cache. Is there a thing that lets me wait for the top sites component? In a way, that's kind of, we have to wait for the top sites feed to be initialized, as well as that's mainly it actually. We need to wait for the top sites component to be, or the top sites feed to be initialized before we quit. So I think what we can do is we can look at some of our tests where I think we already do that, some of that stuff. Like I believe inside of some of our unit tests, XPC shell, there's one that like about home startup cache, worker and child. There's one that like, where's that test? I know there was a test that was added that like, oh, maybe it was this. Feed. Initialize activity stream and kick off initializing all the feeds. Wait for feed loaded. Wait for the this is the easiest way I could find to ensure that enough of the feeds had initialized to produce a meaningful cached document. Yeah. So it's like a wait for condition. It's really sloppy, but let's see if we can do this. Now we don't have a thing, we don't have wait for condition, but this is not the first time that Talos will poll for things. Poll. I think there's like polling in here. No? There are other places where we'll poll for things. Yeah, there's a ping. But what we can do is try and get at the feed. wait for the feed to be loaded. And if it's not yet loaded, we don't fire an event or something, do we, when this stuff's loaded? Feeds. Activity stream.jsm feeds loaded. Feeds.jsm, or maybe it's store.jsm, because I think they also do that. Loaded. No. Feed. Store. Feed on action. Feed.loaded equals true. New tab. Okay. We wait for the discovery enable add observer idle daily. When we enable the feed, then we set loaded as true. And enable is called oh man, how does this work? On pref change, if config load data from all endpoints. Maybe I can just wait for this promise. This dot enable. So maybe what I can do here await feed dot enable. All right, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens if I do that. Oh, it needs access to this thing. About new tab, which is this. Define lazy module getters. So we need about new tab at the top here. And we'll point it at this. Okay. Let's rerun the test and see what happens. Yay, that seems to work. This feels good. This I feel confident about. Now what I feel, I guess I didn't really need it to do all these cycles. All right, that's enough. Let's do one more. Thank you. What's interesting is if we take a look at these scores, what was the final score here? If we take a look at the final score, is 1439. Let's take a look at what happens if we just run the normal about home paint, startup about home paint. So remember that score, 1439.0. 1439. We're just going to keep running this test. We're going to get them all. And what I'm doing is I'm comparing the score. Oh, thank you for writing it down, SmurfD. We're going to compare it with the score that we get whenever we don't have the cache enabled, because that's what this mode of the test runs as, is like the cache is not enabled. And let's take a look at what the test says as the amount of time, the average amount of time to go from process start to painting the top sites. And if all goes well, it should be significantly worse in this state. We should see the average go up. Let's find out. High is bad. And yeah, if we take a look at the value of 1531, so that's almost 100 milliseconds difference on average. Now, I don't know what kind of post-processing happens on these scores, because there's quite a bit of, I guess it's a normal distribution, but like there might be this might be the geometric mean. I'm not entirely certain, but in general, in this particular test, high is bad, lower is better, and the cache version is 100 milliseconds better, because this value is measured in milliseconds from process start to presenting presenting the top sites. So that's good. That's really good. So what I want to do, I think, to make this work, or to make this potentially shippable, is instead of calling this wait for safe browsing, it's like wait for startup complete. Maybe that's what I'll call it. Wait for startup finished. And we can wait for various startup items here to complete during the get info step for Talos, so that subsequent runs don't have to do things like request the safe browsing list. We wait for the about new tabs discovery stream feed to finish being enabled, so that the about home startup cache gets fully written to at shutdown for the what was it, about home startup about home paint test. We wait to finish being enabled here. This is because it's possible for the get info to run so quickly that that the feed will still be initializing and at shutdown, and that would cause us to write a mostly empty cache to the about home startup cache on shutdown, which causes the test to break periodically. Okay, so I think that'll work. And then I need to rename. Where else was that being used? Instead of wait for safe browsing, Talos powers content. Yeah, it's over here. We're going to call that wait for startup finished. And then over here in get info, wait for no, what was it called? Wait for startup finished. All right, I feel pretty good about that. Let's create a commit for this bug. Make sure get info.html waits for about new tabs discovery stream feed to finish initting when setting up a Talos test. And I guess Sparky can review that. Okay, let's put this up for review, and then I'm going to call it a day. Why did it take me so long to get to this? Who knows? Oh, you know what else I should do, actually, is I should push this up for do a try build here. So I'll show you how to do that. Try build, mock try, fuzzy artifact. You can do an artifact build here. We're almost wrapped. I just want to say thank you so much for watching The Joy of Coding. If you enjoyed the episode, let me know. There's this rate this episode link inside the agenda. I can also put a link in the chat right now. Why not? Rate this episode. Let me know what you thought, and that's also an opportunity for you to ask me any more questions. Please use these answers not to steal my identity. I don't know if you could steal my identity from this stuff. Maybe you could. I hope not. Please don't do that. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. Like, I can answer questions about my life if you like, but I'm also happy to answer questions about the code. If maybe there's a part of the browser you want me to explore, we can check that out. But yeah, go ahead and ask some questions. So what I want to do is do Talos other. That is the category of the test that we're running. We're going to do it for all variants, all platforms. Do it. And we're going to call it there. So thanks again for watching The Joy of Coding, episode 261. Tell your friends, please like and subscribe, and we will see you next week with episode 262. So with that, let me transition to this screen and say thanks again, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.